She was the key whistleblower on the Rochdale grooming gang case, and she's the founder of the brilliant charity, the Maggie Oliver Foundation. She joins us, I'm delighted to say, in the studio. Maggie, welcome. I've said, what a day to be talking about this in the wake of that no two-tier policing. My God, we saw two-tier policing when it came to the grooming gangs. You are one of the absolute heroes of this awful blot on our nation's history, blot on our nation's present right now today, in terms of exposing the grooming gangs issue and the fact that it was not being prosecuted because of the ethnicity and the religion of the perpetrators largely, and the ethnicity and religion of the victims. Today you're here not to sort of just go over old ground and just keep talking about it and just keep talking and talking. You're doing enough amazing work with your foundation helping the victims as it is. But you today are launching, along with some of the victims, a fundraiser. What is this fundraiser for?
It's called #TheyKnew, because people at the top of the police, social services, of the council, all knew what was going on and chose to ignore it. They turned away. I've spent 20 years sharing the truth and the evidence with police complaints, with the IOPC, with the government, with the Home Office. The evidence is there.
You resigned your job.
I resigned my job, but nobody wants to hear it.
So when we have, we had things like that big report, independent report into Baroness J, into this, what happened with gangs, and it very briefly touched on.
Julia.
Well, we were told we learnt a lot from that, but there was nothing to learn.
I was a non-institutional core participant in that. I was denied an opportunity to speak. We have the evidence. What we need is a legal team, not the government, who will brush it under the carpet, will do something with it. It's about holding individuals to account who have knowingly failed in their duty to prosecute serial child sex abusers. And the evidence is there, but it goes into a pot and it goes under the carpet and nobody does anything with it. We need the funds to pay the limited costs of a very experienced team of barristers, of lawyers, of professionals who will look at the evidence.
They're not going to be getting rich on this. They are
not. They are giving
costs.
their time, and there will be an intention at the end of it to hold individuals to account, because I believe we need justice for those who have been failed. Yeah. This is primarily to push for change in the future.
Well, this is it, because we're always told whenever we have an inquiry, lessons will be learned. We'll act on the recommendations. Very rarely are any lessons learned, and very rarely actually any action taken at the end of inquiry. There's a lot of talk about how we need to have a full national public statutory judge-led inquiry where people are forced, whether it's a councillor on Rochdale council, whether it's a police officer in Rotherham, a social worker elsewhere, that they are forced to give evidence and under oath, under penalty of perjury and being sent to prison. And that is the only way we are going to find out what really happened. Do you support those calls?
I support victims having a voice, but it's what you do with those voices. The evidence is there.
It's already there.
It's there. I worked on Operation Augusta. We had 97 abusers. We had 70 children. 5 officers were referred for investigation by the IOPC. They deliberately closed down a live investigation because they wouldn't put resources in. They are still walking the streets. Nobody wants to take that legal action. I want to see them in a court of law, and whether that's a private prosecution or otherwise.
What could you prosecute them for?
For neglect of duty, for misconduct in a public office. We have the laws to say that a 40, 50, 60-year-old man can't rape a 12-year-old child. So when senior officers and chief constables then choose to turn away, that is criminal neglect to me. And yet why has nobody ever taken a grip? Because they don't want to.
And nobody has been prosecuted. Because it's now been accepted, has it not? It's been accepted that the police did turn a blind eye. And it wasn't just the police. It was local councils. It was council officials. It was social workers. It was care workers. Girls turning up with their abuser, who was 30 years their senior, to hospital, pregnant. And no one being prosecuted. This was across the... this happened on a grand scale. And again, it wasn't just in Rochdale or Rotherham. We now think 45 to 50 town cities where not only it happened, but it is probably still happening today. thousands upon thousands of girls who were victims of this.
But Julie, what I would say is that this is about the people at the top making policy decisions that these children are not a priority. Yeah. It's not about the one
the
or two.
Copper.
No, it isn't, because
often they were acting.
They want to do something, but they are being prevented when the Gold Command Group will close down an investigation because they won't put resources in. That is not the fault of a detective on the ground. These are people at the top. We've got Keir Starmer saying this is far-right extremists who are making a big fuss like this. It's been 20 years of my life, and I want something to change. And for me, this is the only way to do it. It's survivor-led, it's evidence-driven. We need money to pay for barristers, solicitors, but these people are giving their time. Not all pro bono. There will be costs, but a minimal cost. They won't be charging.
But they bring their expertise,
so
and you need that.
Please help.
And you're working with some quite prominent victims.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Samantha Smith, who was she's a very powerful advocate for how victims have been failed in Telford. Elizabeth Harper, she's a survivor of Rotherham. I have got countless victims who have got ample evidence.
And again, ample evidence that they went to the police, they went to the social workers, they went to the police, they told people in authority, this is happening to me, they were able to provide evidence, and nothing was done. Yeah,
absolutely nothing. This isn't connected with my charity at all. This is completely separate. But we need change for the future so we don't have more generations of children being abandoned in the same way that I've seen.
What do you make? What do you make of somebody? I mean, look, the people perpetrating, the men, again, largely Pakistani origin and heritage, that's been well established now in this particular modus operandi of grooming, targeting young white working class girls because they thought they had no value and they could get away with it, and they were trash. It didn't matter how they treated them. Again, it would turn out they were quite right because the authorities seemed to agree with them. But we know that those are evil, awful men. Thankfully, more and more of them are now going behind bars. But far too many of them are now coming out from prison because we simply do not charge people with enough. We just simply don't put them away for enough time. I mean, the idea that you could gang rape a child for years and you're not just coming out in a box, which is what you should do, is I think bizarre to most of us. But in terms of the people who knew it was happening, the police officers who were told to arrest the father who went to try and save his daughter as she was being gang raped. I know. I mean, I can't even imagine what that parent goes through. But those people, what do you think went through their minds? What do you think the reasoning was?
I think there are multiple reasons. I always say, Ruby from Three Girls, pregnant at just 13, a fetus locked in a property system.
With clear DNA that would have proved she'd been raped. Because you can't have sex legally when you're 13.
No, and she had special educational needs. The Crown Prosecution Service decided not to charge that man with rape, with conspiracy to commit sexual activity with a child. They are deliberate decisions. I always say, if that had been the Chief Constable's daughter or Keir Starmer's daughter, would that charge have been adequate? And I would say no. So there's a judgment of the children that they don't matter. They come from a lower class. They are already vulnerable, though, and that's where we have a duty to step in.
But we know that paedophiles and rapists and perpetrators, we know they target those children deliberately.
Absolutely, but that is our responsibility as a civilised society. Then our public bodies step in and protect those children, and individuals in those organisations have made decisions deliberately to abandon those children.
But this is the thing for me, in some way, I often think these people who don't protect those girls, not only do they not prosecute them years after the fact when they're no longer a threat, but they know they're doing it today, tomorrow, next week, and other girls are going to be victims. If you are not someone who would do that yourself, but you allow that to go on, are you not someone? I mean, you know better, and yet you allow it to continue to happen. You wouldn't allow it to happen to your own child, but you allow it to happen to someone else's. In some ways, for me, they're almost more immoral.
And
do you know what I mean?
You know what, Julia? It's being abandoned by the state that damages those children more than the abuse. And really, the more I've gone through this in the last 20 years, I think in these public institutions, by the time people get to the top of those institutions, their priority is to protect the organisation and not to prosecute the abusers and their job. And this campaign is meant to draw a line under that and make sure that people in office today know that if they don't do their duty, in 10 years' time, they may be standing
punishment. And we have that understanding when we talk about, corporate manslaughter cases with big businesses, that we've had this over the cladding, Grenfell, that actually there needs to be a penalty that is serious for failure to act, or to act and sort of, oh, well, I didn't really know. Oh, well, never mind. You did know. And as you say, this is the hashtag. People can search for the crowdfunder under the hashtag they knew.
Hashtag they knew. Go to my Maggie Oliver UK on X or LinkedIn.
We'll tweet it out as well.
And please tweet it out, because without, I can't do this. I know the evidence is there because I've seen it for 20 years.
You've got evidence yourself as a former police officer.
I'm the facilitator.
But in terms of, Sammy Smith, and I mean other women who were victims as girls, they know the names of the people they spoke to.
Yeah.
They know what they said to those people. They can provide
Send that evidence to me if you want to. I will share it with the legal teams, and they will investigate and put together a case that will prove that people in high places have failed in their duty. Yeah. That's the point of this, because I know victims want to be heard, and that this is the best place for them to do that. It's not just about
them getting the justice they deserve far too late and far too little, but it's also about preventing this happening to more girls.
Yeah,
this isn't a historic crime. This is a here and now crime too.
Yeah, it really is, Julian. That's why we've called it action for accountability.
Yeah.
Because without accountability, there is no deterrent from people in high office today to change the way they view these children, and it will continue.
Yeah. What did you make of the decision last week by the Home Office, announced by Jess Phillips, a woman who's actually spent years campaigning, to stop violence against girls and women, basically saying they're downgrading this, I thought, rather weak pledge from Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, back in January, for £5 billion to be spent on 5 different towns to do their own inquiries, but judge-led, and that would now be sort of victim-led panels and the like. Complete downgrading of this issue. Do you think there's any possibility that any local council or any other could actually institute an investigation into what they themselves and their senior police officers and their social workers and their care workers did so wrong? I mean, you cannot trust people to investigate the crimes that they are part of, can you?
No, you can't. That's why I'm trying another way. I've spent years sharing facts of neglect and corruption at the highest places, and they do not want to do anything. I don't think Jess Phillips is a bad person. It's the system, and anybody in that system has to do as they're told. They don't want to uncover the truth. I don't trust any of them.
Why don't they want to?
Because it will rock boats that they don't want to rock.
It goes too high up.
It goes too high up. There has been in my opinion, there's been systemic failures that they do not want to bring out into the open. But the problem is, the country now knows, that the country and the public know this has been, it's been a shameful neglect of children, and the rest of the world knows. Why are we not acting?
Publicise that. Yeah, again, it is. I think it's utterly bewildering to most of us. That's the thing. I think it's just so incomprehensible, because the vast majority of people, I think if we were in that scenario, we had information, that we would stop it from happening. And yet people whose job it was to stop it didn't. And it's almost too painful to even comprehend that that's what people in officialdom are like.
You're dead right. I mean, I left my job because I could not believe what I was seeing. Yeah. 16 years of my life dedicated to upholding the law, promising to protect the vulnerable, and yet I see chief constables and chief prosecutors making a choice they're not going to do anything about a child that's raped on a daily basis. Why? And I still can't answer that question, but I know that if it's left to them in power, they will do nothing.
People like you are going to have to do it. So tell us again, where can people find out information about how they can donate to help this cause?
It's hashtag they knew. It's a crowd justice campaign. Go to Maggie Oliver UK on X or LinkedIn. I will be sharing the links. Maybe you can share the links.
100%.
And it is for the best legal brains that I can find to fight this from the perspective of somebody who doesn't want to brush it under the carpet. It can be done. I know it can be done. The evidence is powerful. We just need somebody who wants to do something with it, and that is not the government.
I think it's a magnificent cause, Maggie Oliver. I really do. Listening to all of that, I'm sure. Look, you're very close. I mean, you're very close to Robert Jenrick, Shadow Justice Secretary. He's spoken out a lot about this. You've got a lot of influence, a lot of Tories. Could you get them all to share this campaign and let's push this?
Well, I hope so. But can I just say, actually, how wrong I think it is that it falls to the likes of Maggie to conduct and to crowdfund for the investigation and prosecution of those officials that covered this up. Just one group of these offenders, the men that were actually doing it, the Rotherham group, got 611 grand in legal aid from the taxpayer in order to defend themselves against these charges. I don't have a particular problem about that.
People have to get people
have to have their lawyers paid for, and they got and it proves to me that they definitely were guilty. But I know with 600 grand, Maggie could run an extraordinary investigation that would get to the bottom of this. How wrong it is the state, the people that we pay our taxes to, have not conducted this work. So it does fall to people who care about victims, to people who care about this country, to reach into their own pocket at a tough time to pay for it. And it's wrong, but that's the only way we're going to get justice.
Absolutely.
Can I just say that none of the victims involved, myself, we are not making a penny from this.
Of course not.
But it's going to be a lot of work. It'll be thousands and thousands of pages of evidence. It might take a year.
It's not to come to fruition, in a month's time.
No.
But exactly. But someone's got to do it.
It's a fighting fund to hold those to account that need to be held to account.
Absolutely fantastic work, Maggie Oliver, former Detective Constable, Greater Manchester Police, the whistleblower in the Rochdale grooming case case as well. You're an absolute hero, I think, to so many of my audience, certainly to me, and I know to Sam as well. Thank you for everything that you do.